Now that you've, I guess, had a chance to look at Belmont, anything changed over what you told us yesterday?
No, not really. Just reaffirms what I already knew. I really haven't seen Belmont play much this year, but obviously watched them a lot in the last, 24 hours. Outstanding shooting team. Guys really know how to play, space to court, play with great pace. I think that's the thing that surprises me a little bit is how fast they play offensively. Because they're so skilled, they can play at a fast pace and not turn the ball over as much as some teams. And, they shoot the first good shot they get, and oftentimes it's early in the clock. It's an open three or it's a penetration into the paint to make a play. So scrappy, very confident team that plays with a swagger, and as you would expect. And it's a completely different game than kind of what we were just playing. So that probably makes it a little bit more challenging in terms of the short prep is you're playing a team that, the last team we played, it was kind of like pack the paint. We can give up some threes. Don't let them get very many drives. Try not to allow them to get second shots. In this game, it's, they're going to get into the paint some probably. We don't want to give up as many threes. Still got to rebound. They do a good job of rebounding, even though they're not big. They come from long places, and because there's a lot of threes being shot, there's a lot of long rebounds. They get extra possessions. So that makes it a little more challenging in terms of your defensive discipline because your instincts are always to help. And in this game, you got to be very smart about it.
For this particular matchup, were you okay with KJ playing the 4 for the majority of the game?
Well, we'll have to see again. Certainly, I think he's going to need to do that, and we're going to need some perimeter players to help guard threes. But we're going to have to see how it goes. There are some things he hasn't guarded as often as other players, like Jaron is more used to some things just because he's been doing it all year. KJ kind of is only in spot minutes has played the 4, so there's some things that are unique that he's got to get better at, and certainly we're going to keep talking to him about it here over the next 24 hours.
What do they do defensively? Do they try to speed things up there too?
They kind of not really, but they go for steals. They'll pressure you a little bit. They'll go for a passing lane. They'll steal a ball into the post. They'll dig and trap in the post some. Occasionally they'll come trap you. Don't play a lot of zone, but occasionally they'll mix in a little bit of zone. They're pesky, and they're so smart that they're in the right place a lot. They're well schooled that way. Certainly we have an advantage physically, but their peskiness and their basketball IQ makes them hard to play against. They get a lot of steals because their instincts are so good.
Have you played anybody like them this year?
They're like Georgia State in that Georgia State was, was skilled offensively in terms of making threes. These guys are more skilled. But, Georgia State was that way in terms of offensive efficiency and making shots and having, a 4-man that can shoot threes and probably didn't shoot it quite as well as these guys. But that's a little bit of a similarity in terms of just the offensive end. Davidson isn't quite the same. Davidson plays fast and has some guys that can shoot it, but they can't shoot it like Belmont. At least not this year.
Close games have become the norm in the last month and a half. They give you more confidence. These guys are just used to it by now.
Yeah, we've been in a lot of those situations. Certainly, I think sometimes it helps. One of the things we've been able to do is win more close games this year than some other years, and that's one of the reasons why we're having, the kind of season we are. Is our guys have found ways to win those games. I think some of it is, our guards are a little bit older and a little bit more seasoned, and but I'm pretty sure Belmont's probably used to winning these kind of games too. So, but certainly that was a big win against Illinois in a very hard-fought game, and I thought our guys showed good poise and it's one of those games when you're the road team like Illinois was, it was playing out perfectly for you to steal a win. And that's kind of sometimes what you do in those situations is you just hang around the whole game. And even though it felt like we controlled the game, and we really kind of did, we had a 5 to 9 to 10 point lead most of the night. We couldn't get rid of them. And they would hang in there, and then they made it a one possession game midway through the second half, and then from there on out it's back and forth, and that's kind of how it works. And then all of a sudden they make a couple quick threes, and you miss a shot or two or turn it over, and now all of a sudden they got the lead and they're ready to steal the game. I thought we showed great poise when we lost the lead 49-48, and we didn't score the next two possessions to still just defend to keep them within a point, and then to win the game at the end. I thought that was showed great mental toughness and resiliency and experience by our guys.
This time of year, there's a lot of debate about what style of play suits a team best for runs in the postseason. Is there anything to that, or is it more about preparation?
I think a lot of games are matchups. I think you see that in the NCAA tournament as well. Some teams you naturally match up with better than others, and sometimes teams play well against other teams because of the styles. And then there are other teams that the matchups are challenging for you, just because of maybe the way the other teams plays, and or maybe there's a player that is really hard for your team to guard. Maybe it's a point guard, maybe it's a four-man, maybe it's a center, but there's some guy that maybe is a strength of their team that is your weakness, and that's problematic for you, whereas it may not be as problematic for other people, or your strength is better than somebody else's at one particular position, and it just becomes problematic for them, and it's almost like it's really hard for them to beat you because of this one matchup. And I just think that that's a big part of tournament basketball right now.
Do they have a guy maybe not necessarily in that way, but is there a guy on their team that you look at as like, wow, this guy's...
Oh, they've got two or three really good players. I mean, J.J. Mann is obviously OVC Player of the Year, and he's just one of those guys that, like, he's 6'6". You just kind of look at him, you think, all right, he's a good player, but, he's probably a little faster than you think. He shoots it a little better than you think. He drives it a little better than you think. His instincts are great. He plays with supreme confidence. Craig Bradshaw, their two guard, I think is outstanding. Hard driver. Can make threes, aggressive. And I think, again, some of it is put a couple guys like that together, and they're supremely confident together in their system. They're very confident in the system. They're confident in their coach. And now all of a sudden you have guys that are playing at a really, really high level. And I think that's what you see with this team. I mean, they're he's their four-man. Drew Windler is a little bit of a matchup nightmare for a lot of people because he's 6'9", and he shoots threes, and he shoots them highs a little bit. I mean, he's like Iki for Illinois, same type of player, in that it's if you're not on his shoe tops, he's going to shoot, and because he's 6'9", he's shooting over you. You just don't run into that many guys that can do those things and do it moving. Like he can do it. Both those guys can do it. Iki makes a three where he's under the basket, and they run him off a screen running away from the basket, and he shoots it in. Like, it's one thing to stand there and do this and shoot it in. It's another thing to run away from the basket at 6'7" or 8" and do that. Windler's a little bit like that. He can run away from the basket, run away threes. We don't have a whole lot of guys on our team that can make a high percentage of runaway threes. Those are hard shots, and to be 6'8", 6'9" like Windler and be able to do that, that's a matchup problem.
Is that the hardest part when you play a team like this, is don't get caught up in what they like to do? You said they like to speed things up.
The hardest part about this is you don't see this. This isn't an ACC style of play because, more ACC teams are bigger, stronger, more physical, but we don't shoot it as well. And that's obviously one of the great equalizers is threes are worth more than twos. And you don't practice every day like this. You practice more for games like Illinois every day where you're gapping and recovering and rotating and blocking out and rebounding and closing out and short and being strong and physical, and that's half the teams or more than half the teams in the ACC. It's just like us. But Belmont is different in that you can't do that. I mean, Boston College is a little bit similar to Belmont in that they're spacing you all the time. There's four guys out there that can make threes. You got to get away from some of your natural instincts to go help on every play and stay disciplined as shooters. And it's, if you haven't practiced that for 3 days in a row, you get in the middle of a game and your instincts tell you to do one thing, and if you haven't been trained, because you've been trained almost every other day to do the natural thing, help, you're probably going to overhelp sometimes and give up threes. Well, that's what they're banking on. And because you don't see that, every day, and because we haven't had 3 or 4 days to practice against it, as a coach, that's a concern for you.
Is that why you see the Daytons and the St. Louis's pull off upsets in the NCAA?
I think some of that is. I mean, some of those teams play that way, and some of those teams just, aren't. There aren't that many teams that are Belmont in terms of having this kind of offensive firepower and shooting. It's unique. They're just. I mean, it's one thing to have a guy that can make a 3 at the 4 or something like that, but they've got guys that can make 4 or 5 threes at about 4 different positions. So, it really stresses you. And, their coach has won, 700 games or something. So, he obviously knows what he's doing. So he's putting them in positions to be successful. And, again, it's difficult for teams at our level that aren't used to that as much doing that in a short turnaround.
Because of the short turnaround, is it almost work in your favor that the guys don't have much time to worry about what could be next beyond?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, but I think everybody knows, you win, you're going to New York, and, at the beginning of the tournament, and that's everybody's, that's all the announcers say, that's all, I guess even coaches, we mention it, and, that's like the big key for the NIT is hey, let's get to New York. I mean, every team that's in the NIT, they're like, all right, I'm sure every coach comes in and every media guy asks them, wouldn't this be great if you can get to New York, get to New York, get to New York? So, they've been hearing it for a couple of weeks, whether it's from you guys or us or whatever. So they know that. I would probably rather have the extra days of practice to get ready for the game.
Well, to this point, what has led to your field goal, 3-point field goal percentage being so good? What factors?
Defensively? Well, it's been a strong emphasis from day one. It's one of the things that I said we have to be better at this year than last. I think there's a myriad of factors. I think we've done a better job of coaching it. I think Landry Noko's ability to guard the paint and help on ball screens and do some different things has allowed us to stay home sometimes and not give up quite as many threes as maybe in the past. I think that's helped. I think our guards being another year older and having another year of experience probably haven't made quite as many mistakes as we probably made last year, overhelping and lost on switches or lost, just mental breakdowns from being a little bit younger and playing freshmen and sophomores all the time. So I think it's, a little bit of all those things. And, this is one of those unique years where we've really defended the 3 well and gotten some teams to miss.